What's up, everybody? A Sparrow with a Gun here from Sleepless Nights with another episode on the Space Engineers Let's Build series. We're starting things off today, kind of picking back up after my Christmas vacation, so I kind of have to get back into the swing of things a little bit, but we're back on our Shadowbound capital vessel build. And I wanted to point out a couple of things over the past, well, it's been like 2 weeks now, because I missed an episode last week. But from some of the comments that I got on the last episode, so I wanted to bring up a couple of them. One being, I mentioned that it's a capital vessel, and there was a couple of people, or one in particular, that mentioned why is it considered a capital vessel. Two reasons. One, just because it's a big ship, and at a certain size ratio to me, they become capital vessels at that point. Now, it went on to ask about, you know, functionality and things like that as to what defines a capital ship, and that's a little bit, to me, of kind of a user preference, as in real life, other than, like, naval vessels and stuff like that, but I mean, like, spaceship-wise, we don't really have a set criteria, because all of our ships are just kind of rockets, so it would probably come down to mostly be like a fleet command type ship, big battleship, that kind of stuff. But I was thinking mostly stuff like Star Destroyers and the Super Star Destroyer kind of ratio type of thing, to where this ship is going to have a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but it'll have a decent amount of fighters, weapons. It'll kind of serve as a habitat for the main commanders, etc. and so on. So it is kind of sort of an all-purpose in a way. It'll be able to do a lot of different things. As well as the size is, it's just kind of big. It's not designed to be like a fast-moving destroyer or a quick response strike vessel or anything like that. It's basically just a big lumbering, all-in-one type of thing. And some of that's because we haven't gotten past the hull design. I haven't gotten into weapons and internal functionality, hangars, you know, all that kind of stuff, so it doesn't really have anything special about it at the moment. So that's probably part of the reason why that doesn't quite make sense. So I wanted to bring that up. The second being the bridge and a couple of things with its shape. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the glass. Now, I've altered this structure a little bit by doing this. This part wasn't done when I made this ridge shape, because one of the questions I got asked was, why not just keep kind of this design going on and just do down here, and why have this ridge at all? Well, the ridge was designed primarily because what happens here, and it's a little bit hard to tell with this block here. So the problem that I've run into is if I were to keep this shape going and not basically bring it back out, now I do see a solution for it, but just for example, you get this problem where, because again we're using the 2x1 ramps vertically, the angle is more steep and this is more horizontal. And so when you just kind of follow this shape up, it sort of breaks. Now, what I'm seeing that I could possibly do is this, where we put a straight block there, or vice versa, do it down here and then do one up there, something like that, which may or may not work out. I'm not sure how that would play out, because I think I would have to do... I still don't think that would really work. I'd have to do it on the... Well, I could do the, where are they? These? No. These. Yes. I could do these, I think. Maybe. It's not really working right. Maybe I couldn't do those. Why is it... Why won't it go that way? That's really weird. Oh, that's the direction. Okay. So I need, like a... Wait, what the heck? There. Okay, so I'd have to put it on that block and I'd run it down there. Okay, so I could do that. Actually, let me go ahead and do this on one side and we'll compare. Because, yeah, originally this ridge design was actually put in place before I brought this out one when it was all still using the 2x1 ramps here. And when I did that, it caused a bit of an issue where I couldn't quite get everything to line up correctly. So that's part of where that came from. Now this is going to be an issue here, though. I wonder if it would be better to put this on the bottom row. Actually, let's test this theory out here. Getting a little carried away with the block breaking, apparently. So this part is still going to be a problem, though, because we don't have a good way to merge this shape. So it would... my best guess would it would probably have to end up something like this, and then do... if I wanted to close this shape off, then do like this. I don't like this as much, but it would kind of keep it from just being a square, though we could do the square idea. But this will come back to something else that got brought up of, do we keep the central structural beam here? And that I'm not sure about, because for practicality reasons, it makes sense. You know, it gives your windows and stuff something to attach to, so it works. But at the same time, this isn't exactly a ship that's designed for its, you know, realism. So it kind of begs the question, do we really need to keep that there, or could we get away with... wait a minute, is that going to seal right? I guess it is. It was just a weird lighting glitch there. What happens if I spin it around? Will that still work? Wait, what? See, this has a weird anchor point where it's like I can't get it to flip this way. It has to go one direction. That's weird. It's really odd. Oh well, whatever. And like that. Nope. Right window, wrong place. There we go. And then let's go ahead. Wait, really? You're gonna make me break all of this? Alright. So I could do something like that. And the reason I was saying that this could end up being affected by the other idea was if we remove this central pillar, then it begs the question, could I bring this out with a ramp of glass and stuff? But see, this central part, or this squared off part here, causes the issue because we don't have a 3-corner to a point glass type without any mods or anything. So hence why I ended up going with the ridge, because it kept everything kind of uniform. And if I did take out the central, I could still keep the ridge part going and the glass windows would work. Now, the other thing we have to consider is, we talked about in the last episode, taking some off the side of this, which would affect the shape of the canopy here. And so that's something we have to consider, that if we're going to do that, then it would also affect the glass shape. But as for it being disproportional, I suppose it is a little bit. I don't really think it's that bad, just because if you go back and look at my original concept design over here, it was somewhat modeled off of a Star Destroyer initially, and so the bridge is significantly smaller than the rest of the ship, and so I don't think it's too far off from the original concept in terms of size ratio. However, I could make it a little bit longer, probably. We've got enough room on this platform up here that we could do that without much complication or incident type of thing. So yeah, I could make it a little bit longer, maybe a few blocks longer. The big thing, though, is I am really noticing that I feel like it's too wide. See, the hard part was in my original concept, this went out further and then kind of just rounded off and went down. And in this one, it ended up tapering a lot more, so there's a lot less shoulder space up here So I think that's part of why it looks a little bit more disproportionate. Now, if we're talking about height, and we're saying the height is disproportionate, that may in fact be a little bit true. That I'm not quite sure about. But the one thing we talked about in the last episode was shortening or cutting out a couple of rows here, which would cause us to have to shorten the nose a bit. Hence why I am working on the copy, right? Yes. I made a copy of this one, and that's my backup from last episode. So before we go back into the bridge, I'm going to try and work on this. Now, I might use mirror mode here, not because I want it to slice both, but because it'll help me remember where the center point is. Let's see here. Okay, so that will leave that. We can turn this on, and now I can kind of see where the center line is. Or, well, I guess it won't matter. I just have to make sure that I turn off mirror mode before I do anything. So we'll start at the center. And since this is a copy and I can easily grab that copy down there, let's go ahead and start... Whoa. Actually, I should have left the other mirror mode on. I know what I'll... excuse me, I know what I'll do. I'll turn the... whoa. Got a little carried away there, buddy. I'll turn the middle one on. And then we're actually going to turn this one off. And then we'll start from the nose, and that way we don't have to remember, but it'll do the same thing on both sides, because what I want to do... Well, do I want to take out this one, or do I want to start one lower? I guess it won't matter, because it's going to end up shortening the whole thing, won't it? So we're going to go out like this, out to back here. Then we'll bring it over. And hopefully, I can never figure out in this game why the numbers are there and the hologram side of this is like gone. It never makes any sense to me. If it's showing up, then what's the problem? Okay, there it is. It has these really finicky rules where, like, if you start one way, you have to... But see, then it just disappears after a while. It's like it can only do so many. Which is probably the truth, but... Okay. Let's grab this. So yeah, I think I'm gonna take off... excuse me. I think I'm gonna take off... like 2 layers to start with. I don't know where I am anymore. Wait a minute, why isn't it taking it off both sides? What? What is the point of mirror mode if it's not going to take... Oh, I don't have it turned on. What a derp. Alright, let me fix this. Alrighty, so I got some of this cut out, but actually the more I'm looking at it, the more I might need to do a bit more, because I think this would equate to 3 in total. Let's see, because there's... or 2, I guess, because there's the row here, and then there's 1, and then 2 that's missing. So I guess that took out 2. But I might have to do more than that, because it doesn't really seem like... I'm kind of picturing it just moving it up a little bit, and it doesn't really seem like it will have affected it that much. So we might have to take another good chunk out of it. Now, because of the way I designed the nose over here, I'm not sure that I couldn't do it any other way, but it does seem like if I were to remove another section, I would have to go up to here, which would be 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and I guess 5, technically? But then there's 1 added back in with the middle row, so there would be 4 rows removed, I think. Now let's turn mirror mode off for a second. That's throwing off the math. So it's 5 from that block to that block, but then there's 1 added back in here at this height. So yeah, that if I removed it there, it would remove about 4. And then if I went up another row, I think that's the right height, it would be 6. So every time I move up to one of these angle slopes, which then preserves the nose shape, it moves it up by 2, it looks like. So we can kind of keep trying that. But yeah, it definitely seems like that when I actually started cutting it, I was like, yeah, it actually seems a bit pudgier than I wanted it to. So probably not a bad idea to remove some excess blocks. Now, the weird part is it's actually showing for this, but it's not affecting this grid anymore, so I don't know why the mirror is showing that. It's kind of weird. So for any of you that aren't sure what I was talking about, the way that I do the nose here is we add that back in and then fill in this, and it's a 1 block thick. So that would effectively be the nose, and then from here we'll have to actually, let me grab this one, and then I go this way, and that way the mirror crosses over everything. And it does definitely seem like there's a 2,000 block limit on this, because right about here, when I go it'll still show up every now and again, but the hologram part's gone, so about 2025 seems to be the main limit for that. So let me go ahead and shave off a few more of these layers, and then we'll see what it looks like with some of the fat trimmed off. Alrighty, so I actually went ahead and removed another layer off of it, so that's a total of 6 that we cut out. Mainly just because it still just wasn't quite looking very thin. For lack of better, it's just still looked a bit pudgy. Now granted, I haven't actually moved it up and attached it, but it's still just, I don't know, it just didn't look like it would be that much. So went ahead and added a few more. Now for this area, wait, did I have my lights on already? Oh, it's just that dark. Alright, so for this area, all of this should work the same in theory. So if we can get a merge block there and a merge block there, we should be able to do this. And I do have it saved before we attempt this, so it should be okay. Let's just slap that there, and I don't think we'll need a gyroscope. If we're doing this the right way, we shouldn't need the gyroscope anyway. Alright, so let's see if my theory works. A little bit. Oh, did it work? I can't see anything. There it goes. Okay, cool. Perfect. So then we can just turn off mirror mode, remove it. Oh, yeah. Didn't think about that. We're going to be floating. And put that there. Gyroscope. Power. There we go. I don't know if I needed the gyroscope or not, but alright, we have no speed. Cool. Remove all that, and now I'm stuck in the ship. Where are my hangars? Ooh! That significantly shortened my hangar doors. And I mentioned this in the last episode, that if I did this, I was going to probably have to trim these back as well. So, let me double check here where I had this cut off at. Actually, first let's take a look at the outer hull. I think that looks better. It actually still could probably stand to have a little bit thinned, but I definitely think that's an improvement over that one. That one looks pretty fat, so I think this is an improvement overall. But I think what's really doing it is this section here in the middle that's just got so much straight blocks in it that it makes it look a bit pudgier in the middle, kind of thing. Even having shortened it back by 6 rows, it still just looks a bit chunky in the center. And I don't know if there's a way to get around that or not, or if it's kind of always going to do that. I'm not really sure. It's possible that I should actually go from the back and measure the back how many blocks I want from the top. That might actually improve it. I'm not sure. What I mean by that is this out here, where I have this, and I have it set... How much is this? I think it's 5 by 5. Ah, got mirror mode on again. 7 by 6. That was probably not intentional, but that's the numbers that came out. So 7 by 6, and this is definitely not that. So if I were to remove... Oh, and I didn't even look at the design. That's what I went there to look for. Not just the numbers. Okay, so I stopped it right after one of these slants and on the inverted edge. That lets me know where to cut off this section. So let's just start with one of these right here. So we should just be able to cut these off and then scrap the node ends and be okay. Now this puts us... The width is going to be a lot different on this, so we're already at a 7 block width, but we only have a 3 block height. What the... Really? Good grief. Alright, so if we take a... It'll stay a 7 block width, actually, because... Oh, okay. So let's try and take off... Let's try 2. Yeah, that might actually be right. I was gonna say that might be too much, but that might... Wait, what happened? What happened here? Oh, crap. I snipped it the wrong... I went 1 block too high. Poop. Okay, well, good news and bad news. The good news is I actually got the dimensions back to the 7 by 6 dimensions. Didn't think that would happen, but as we worked it back far enough, we have a 7 block height, and we have a 6 block width. Now you might notice there's a little something wonky going on here. And it's because the way that I shortened this, or rather the way that I designed this in the first place, there's a certain spot, as you can see here, where it stops following the same uniform pattern all the way around, with the exception of the side. The side was always that way. And it cuts into this curve section, which goes further out, right? So that's what we've run into here. And I don't really know of a way to fix it completely other than to kind of pull the Occam's razor thing and just fill this in, which it's not terrible. And you could actually use this area for something else. You could use it for a flight control room, you know, to open the hangar doors. You could have a window out here so they can see what's going on, you know, stuff like that, and it might work out okay. It's just a little bit stubbier than I kind of wanted it originally, but overall, I don't know. I'm not disappointed with it. It does look a little bit better, I think, in most ways. I'm just not sure if it looks good enough all the way around for me to keep it that way, or should I just keep it with the original? It's a bit pudgier, but I do like the hanger type things on the back end a little bit more on that one. But it does look a little bit slimmer, I think. And like I said, part of me almost wants to take it back until it's like a couple of blocks thin. But if I do that, out of curiosity, I wonder where that would put me. If I took it back to where it only had like a 2 or 3 block height, it would probably be... Let's see here. If this is every 2, if I've got to take off every 2, or 2 every row, anyway, and this would require me to remove about 10, so that's 5 more rows? Oop, I'll leave that there. So 5 more rows, starting here would be 1 more, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'd have to take it back to somewhere about there, which would make the nose... The other problem that this does is I kind of wanted the nose to be a bit more pointed, and the further back I go, the wider this ends up being, which is not ideal. So I may just have to bite the bullet and stick with the pudgier one. I'm not really sure, because the more I look at this, the more tweaks I make to it, the more I'm kind of like, I'm not really sure that it preserves the overall style design. Not to mention, quite frankly, I took out like 6 layers, but I'm not really sure that it made it that much slimmer. It doesn't really look that much better to me. I could be wrong, let me know what you guys think, but... Now, I will say one thing. If you'll notice, the nose shape somewhat changes. You can tell by the armor plating that it had this kind of design, and then about here it changes to this style. If I were to take it back, heck, I could even do 1 more, and then it would completely eliminate this style here. I don't know how I would cope with the nose being this wide, though. That would be a problem for me. But it would kind of make a bit more of a less bumpy looking, it would have a bit more of a shallower hull. But overall, I gotta admit, I'm kind of leaning towards sticking with that one, but we'll keep tinkering with this one for the remainder of the episode. The other reason being these back-end hangars here, it didn't really help them all that much to look any better. They kind of look short and stubby, and now granted, this is actually a bit closer to the original design. I didn't have them sticking out quite as far, but I think I kind of like that overall. And I don't know if I decided or not. I think I kind of did. That this is probably kind of the back shape that we'll go with. I'm not as big of a fan of it, but I honestly really can't find another way to blend these shapes together because they're facing 2 different directions, basically, so they didn't give me a block to transition between reversed, essentially. The only thing I could do, I don't know if it would help or not, I think I tried this last episode, would be to add in the invert here, but I don't think that would really help much. It would just make it worse. Now, the other thing is, do I take some of this off the sides type of thing? Do I end up shortening this a little bit? Because as tall as it is a little bit jarring to have it be curving, and then just kind of like jump up all of a sudden. And I suppose I actually could make this a little bit shorter. I wanted it to be a very large bridge with multiple floors and things. But if everybody's talking about height as the part where it's being referenced as being out of proportion, I was thinking they meant length or width. But if they're talking about the height being that it sticks up too high, what I may end up doing is making a bit more of a... how do I put it? Like, maybe taking off the top here and making this row up here the roof, and then you just have a row of glass with a walkway or a platform in between for a floor, and then another row of glass and then the roof, or something like that, to shorten it a little bit. And if I do that, it could change the overall shape we have to go with, and I could probably shorten it on the sides, but maybe bring it out a little further. I don't know. Another question that got asked that I just now remembered was the question of how long is the ship from stem to stern. So I'm just going to grab this back part here because it's technically the furthest or longest point. I believe it's something like 150 though, off the top of my head. Or it's gotten a little bit longer. So So about 188, 189, somewhere in there. Now, if you're going from this point to the very back before it curves, that would be a little bit different, but I figured that was, you know, overall length. And there's probably about 10, 20 blocks length in that. Let me just check real quick. Actually, using the mirror mode isn't a bad way to test this because you're 1 block off, but it's 22, so I wasn't too far off. So it's 22 blocks off there, so it's about 166 from the back edge to the nose, but it's about 188 from the thrusters, or the hangars. They were going to be thrusters. But let me know what you guys think as far as, I need feedback on 3 different points. One being, should we keep it thinner? Or does anybody really think that affects it that much? Because I got to admit, I don't think it really does. Looking at these two, especially just from a side distance and not up close, it doesn't really look that much thinner to me. And I feel like in order to make it look thinner, I'd have to go all the way back here, which would drastically affect the nose more than I'd like to do. The other thing is, should we shorten the bridge and bring it in and bring it out a little bit, or just shorten it a little bit or something like that? So, because I'm kind of thinking, I wanted it to be a really big bridge, like, because the whole idea here, I never really explained, like, the lore side, I suppose, to this one, but the whole idea was for it to be a big ship. And I know it's actually not huge in terms of actual Space Engineer ship design kind of thing. It's not 1,000 blocks long or something. But I meant it in the context of, like I said when I started this one, that this is probably going to be a ship designed for the Dog Squad series, and so you can kind of play around with a little bit of how large something's supposed to be in a story when you're controlling how it's viewed and stuff like that. So the premise, though, is for it to be a big capital ship, head of the fleet, and kind of an all-purpose, you can live on the ship type of thing. Like, you never have to leave. Kind of like a Star Destroyer Enterprise type of thing, where it's a really big ship. And so I understand that even a big ship like the Enterprise, even the D or the E, that had thousands of people on board and were huge, had like a 5-person, 10-person bridge. It was a small bridge. But that was kind of the point. I wanted the bridge to kind of make it even feel like it was a bigger ship. But I suppose, so I wanted to have a multi-layer where you had a top floor and a bottom floor and then, you know, some kind of passageway. But there's actually a pretty good amount of room in here, especially if we use subgrids to do detailed bridges type thing. So with that in mind, we probably could do this row. And I suppose if I got creative with catwalks, I could even do just 2 glass rows, but I think that would be a little too short. So what I'm thinking is maybe do a glass row, a block row, and a glass row, and then just make this top one a roof and kind of bring this down a notch. Because with a large grid, I mean, 1 block is about the height of the character, so as long as it's 1 block high, you're probably okay. It probably won't feel too claustrophobic or anything like that, but let me know what you guys think about that in the comments. We're gonna wrap up the episode here, so if you guys are just looking for the episodic content, feel free to tune out. I do want to do a bit of channel discussion, which I've been doing at the end of all of my episodes this week. So if you're interested in giving input and stuff for the channel and the New Year's schedule and stuff like that, then stick around. So some of you are already probably aware of this because I've mentioned it in all of my other episodes, but for those of you that only watch one series, that's what this is for. There's going to be a poll. I'll try and keep it right around here in the cards section up in the top right corner. But there's going to be a poll about the new schedule. So I'm thinking of changing my schedule for the new year, starting in the new year. And I realized that this was the last full week before the new year, and the next Tuesday, where I would release my first episode for the next week, would be the first of the year. So I figured it was a good time. It gave me a perfect opportunity to throw all these polls and stuff out there, get you guys' feedback, and then I could apply it next week, and it would actually be on the first of the year. So it worked out really well. keeping in mind that one of the options is no changes at all. If you're happy with all the Space Engineers content and don't think you want to see all the other stuff that I'm mentioning, then, you know, just tick the no change thing on the poll, and, you know, that helps me figure out if everybody likes what I'm already doing. I'm also just going to kind of fly around so that you guys can see the ship a little better and maybe make more opinions, but the gist of it is, and for any of this, if you want more detail, check out my last podcast episode, which also had a poll in there as well, but I didn't have as many views or feedback as I wanted to give me a clear, definitive result, so I figured I would just do it individually, because sometimes I think that, you know, people would give input and feedback, but they don't watch the podcast or something, so they didn't know it was an option. So, and I didn't post it as a channel announcement, which I probably should have, so, you know, there's that. But anyways, I've been polling each individual series just in case everybody only watches, or some people watch one series and they weren't aware of it before, and so that way everybody kind of gets a chance to vote. And if you do the poll and you decide you want to comment or something to explain your reasoning or something, just let me know that you already voted on that so I don't count your comment as well as your poll, because that would skew the results to trying to figure out what everybody's looking for. But the gist of it is, I've been looking into adding more games into my schedule, my release schedule, but I didn't want to do any more released episodes per week because I'm already kind of trying to put as much time as I can into the finishing up my book. And I've been doing pretty good with the schedule that I have, so I didn't really want to add to that anymore. So I'm still going to keep 4 episodes a week. The question basically comes down to, do I remove certain Space Engineers episodes to make room for new series? Do I do an alternate week schedule where one week is one set of episodes and then you switch it to another episode or another set the next week and then you go back? Or do I not make any changes? And the games that I'm looking at adding are Ashen and Subnautica and probably Astroneer, though Astroneer I may end up waiting till February because it goes into full release on February, and I'd kind of like to... I don't see the point in getting started and then maybe having to even do a save wipe when it comes out for full release. So, Ashen just looked really cool to me. I'm a big Dark Souls fan, but it actually had a bit more of a lighthearted art style and stuff, and it wasn't all dark and creepy monsters and gory blood and stuff like that. So while I really like Dark Souls, it probably wouldn't click with a lot of you guys that are fans of my channel, because I don't tend to do games like that on my channel. Ashen seemed like a pretty cool way to segue into stuff like Dark Souls type gameplay, but actually kind of keep it on a little more of the lighthearted and chill type of game, rather than going super dark and you know, stuff like that. So I really wanted to play Ashen. It just came down to, does anybody want to see it? And Subnautica everybody seemed to be a big fan of, and there's the rumors or speculation going on that the or maybe not rumors, I think they actually announced it from the devs, but the new Arctic DLC is coming out sometime early 2019, so I thought maybe going back and revisiting it, and like I said, Astroneer's coming out into full release, which I haven't played it in a while, but it seemed really fun, and if they added more content and changed stuff, then it would be more intriguing. So, there is if I do an every other week thing, there is a slot still available for another episode, unless you guys would want to keep like the inspiration series every week, and then I would just do that every week and everything else would be every other week, something like that. But again, check the poll and check the podcast if you'd like more information, although the idea of the alternate week schedule came up after the podcast, so I didn't actually touch on that in the podcast, but what I'm thinking would be something like Inspiration Series, Ashen, Subnautica, and maybe the Let's Build, and then the following week doing like Reverse Engineers, Astroneer, the Space Engineers Let's Play, and like I said, then maybe doing another Inspiration episode on the second week, or another game, if you guys have other suggestions of things that I either haven't played or have played before and you'd like to go back to. But so let me know what you guys think in the comments and poll and all that. Like I said, though, if you do comment If you do both, then just let me know so I know how to tally it correctly. If you just want to comment, that's fine too. But in the meantime, we're going to wrap things up here for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, and I will see you all next time. Peace.